Hi Geeta. Okay, I'm not anyone having any idea how to pin the question. Pin the comment. Okay. Hello everyone. Hello Payal. How are you? Good and hello Himanshu. How are you? I'm doing great. Good to see you here. So this is our fifth episode on emotional abuse, and it is a Q&A round. And whosoever asks the question on emotional abuse may get a chance to win a gift from us. And with this, I would like to invite Aarti. We have already had 5 episodes on emotional abuse, which is already uploaded into the channel. You can watch them and understand. It is there to create awareness with you. And also, today, with your questions, you can clarify anything related to abuse. Aarti, can you send me a request? I'm not able to send that to you. Okay, fine. Thank you for joining in, Aarti, for the Q&A round.
Hi, good evening again. So
Good.
nice to be here. How are
Same.
you, Suchi?
All good, all great. Uh, I would not delay today because we have lot many questions to take and cover from the questions that we have received previously from the audience, and we don't know how many questions would come up. So
Sure.
uh, we already had 4 episodes on emotional abuse where we had taken different topics on child abuse, relationship abuse, on and general the awareness of the abuse. And today we are taking the live questions.
Hmm.
Okay.
Yes, audience, happy to take your questions. And you said you already have received some, right? So let's start on
Yeah,
those.
let's start on them, and so that whatever comes in between, we can continue with that. Let me ask you the one simple question is that I feel scared in the relationship because it is abusive. I cannot leave my partner. Please tell the how can I change him or her? Is there any hope or any way the things can be different?
Okay, thank you for that question. First of all, I acknowledge this person to even having come up and said that they feel abused and the fact that they are scared. I acknowledge you for that. It's a very normal feeling when you feel abused and fear that comes from getting abused and the fear that stays after that is it's quite normal. So I acknowledge you. Now, here you've asked that you can't change the partner, you can't leave the partner in the sense you cannot change the partner as such or step out of the relationship. So, see, you have to step back and understand one thing that whether it's abuse or any other kind of relationship which is not working, one of the first things that we recognize as human beings is that we cannot really change anyone. Okay. So the whole point being that you recognize there is abuse, you know that the relationship is negative, and you feel that changing that person changes the abuse or reduces the abuse or this relationship becomes better. Now, these are expectations which are not founded in reality. Because one of the traits of the abuser also, even if we say that you only change yourself and no one else, one of the traits of an abuser per se is that they have these traits in the long term. They are abusing because they already consider there is a power imbalance in the relationship, and they have a certain kind of understanding of their own, whether call it ego, call it self-worth, call it a sense of being condescending, not just in your relationship, could be with someone else also, maybe at the workplace, maybe at the playground, we don't know. But they already have a sense of exalted self where they think they may be right, or they think that they may not be doing anything wrong. So clearly to go into that space of wanting to change them is a battle which is already lost. Okay? Because abusers, like I said, have a personality trait. It
Mm-hmm.
may be possible to change them if they are willing to get changed.
They are
And if they
willing
are
to.
willing to approach maybe a counselor, a psychologist, even a psychiatrist, or even come up to a coach and what issues they may be having, and then things can be taken from there. But if they remain closeted in what they are, and you are the one who's at the receiving end, it may be difficult for you to get any step further if you continue to think that, oh, I am the one who cannot change, so I am the one who has the destiny of continuing to be abused. It doesn't work that way. So why not just work on yourself? You
Hmm.
really can't change the relationship, as you said, you can't change the person, as we have just established. Then why can't
Hmm.
you just work on changing yourself? And when we say changing yourself, it sounds big, it sounds really huge, and it sounds almost impossible. But the whole point of changing yourself is actually going on a growth path or a transformation journey where you start to love yourself more, where you raise your self worth and self belief so much that you can even continue to start to continue to ignore what the kind of abuse you may have faced. You may start to
Hmm.
look at it with a different lens. While having said that, abuse still remains abuse. But if you have chosen to remain with the person, then you would have to probably give your life a different flavor. So you have to work on yourself and transform yourself to be able to look at that more objectively than what you are doing today.
Right, right.
I hope that helps.
Yeah, and I would like to add a disclaimer over here. By changing your, we are not trying to demean you. We are trying to say that so you cannot change the other person. That's the fact. Until unless the other person wants to change. The second thing is if you have to remain in that scenario, the circumstances, the events, then how are you able to adjust, adapt, cope, or be a better person so that you can tackle the situations bravely, courageously, so that you have to learn that. And when Aarti is saying that you have to change, means you have to learn all those processes and bring the changes within yourself to handle the situation in a better way.
Absolutely. Thanks for adding that, Suchi. Aptly said. Basically,
Okay.
get yourself the tools to be able to live in that relationship further since you don't want to leave that relationship.
Yeah. Yes, yes. The next question is how can I communicate with my partner that the way he is speaking is hurting me? Here he is mentioned.
Okay, so this is possibly a woman who's saying that the man is hurting her by just the
Yeah,
way he is speaking.
speaking.
Okay.
So the way the
So,
communication is happening, that is hurting the women, and in which way she can communicate to the spouse.
okay, now that we don't have more details, we're assuming that this may be this is a spousal relationship. Okay, so this
Yeah.
is a spousal relationship. So obviously the person is in deep connection in terms of your intimacy, in terms of how many times in a day you may be actually seeing the person, coming across that person. So it's a long-term relationship. It's something that needs all that investment. When you start to feel hurt, when either one of the parties start to feel hurt about something that is being said, you would again have to take a step back and see, is this a pattern? There are many times, because we see each other so often in an intimate relationship, there are many times we may be also having something that is bothering us or frustrating us or not being going in our direction. And it may be so, it may be a displaced anger of something that easily comes out on the nearest person to you, which may nearest or dearest person to you, which may happen to be a spouse.
Mm-hmm.
So, first of all, observe whether it is a pattern or the person is only displacing anger or showing it in spurts out of some external stimuli. So, if it is external stimuli that comes up once in a while, and if it is a displaced anger or a frustration or something that the spouse is stressed about, you might want to consider or give the benefit of doubt at in those moments. I'm not saying don't do anything about it, but in those moments, give it a benefit of doubt because you're probably the only person in that person's closest circle who they expect we understand. And that is why the anger so easily comes out on you because you may be taken for granted. But being taken for granted doesn't mean that they don't love you. It may be that it's just momentary. So try to observe and make that distinction in the behavior itself. However, if you are aware that there is no external stimuli, this is a pattern, the person really doesn't have any foundation to, speak to you in a way that hurts you. The person does not really have any justification. Actually, there's no justification to hurt in any relationship. But in this case, if you're feeling that it's been happening like a pattern without any external trigger, and without anything that you have also done, and even if you have done something that angers the other person, the only thing in that situation would be when you observe the pattern, you might want to sit that person down. Take the person in a environment, and in this case, your spouse, take the person in an environment that suits you both, where it is easy for you to talk to each other and give very specific examples of events and places and situations where you have felt hurt.
Mm-hmm.
The second thing is do not stretch it too much over time. While you're trying to find an appropriate situation and all of that, don't stretch it over time because that might be a pent up frustration for you also. But because it is a pattern, you've noted it down in your head and it's distracting you, it's not making you feel good and you feel hurt about it, there is a chance that it might just come out in a very simple communication. An intimate relationship, every individual is still different. We are all evolving. So give that much benefit of doubt till the time a communication has taken place. And if the person has understood, good, things go in your favor. And you can always make promises to each other about not having to repeat something that hurts either of you. However, if the pattern gets repeated despite a communication or the communication itself is discouraged, that's where you see there is a barrier. And that's where the clarity to you should come in that it is clearly an abuse.
Mm-hmm.
And that's when you start to set boundaries. Because then you would also have to show your sense of self-worth at a point where you feel that if everything you have tried and it hasn't worked, especially from a communication point of view, you would have to set boundaries and clearly tell the person first, tell yourself, what is it that is acceptable? What is it that is unacceptable? And then take your journey further from there. Because if you don't set your boundaries, things are going to continue the same way. So your
Right.
first step is communicate, identify whether it's an external stimuli or not. Identify if it's not an external stimuli, there's something in the relationship that needs to be tweaked or fixed, then do so. Try to do it together, take an agreement on that. In case that also doesn't work, and if you feel that this is going to be just a one-way traffic of communication and not coming to any conclusion on why I'm feeling hurt, this is a form of abuse where the person is playing a manipulation or a trick on you or some kind of a power imbalance as a showcase to you that this is something that they feel is their right, which creates a rift, which has already started to create a rift. If you continue to feel hurt, then it creates a rift and it's not healthy for the relationship to grow. And it does show up outside
Right.
also
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
observers. How much ever you may want to hide it, it shows. So point is not hiding it from anybody. The point is how you feel about it. So there are these 3, 4 stages you might have to start observing, interpreting, and analyzing your situation before you come to a conclusion. And if you feel it is abuse, you have a choice to act on it.
Right, right. Aarti, while you
Absolutely.
were
If you'd like to
speaking
add
this,
something to that,
nothing to add on because you're very well said. Find the right time and the boundary. These two
yeah.
are the points that came to my mind, and it is absolutely true because if it is not the right time, you're trying to show everything on the point when other person is trying to get into the zone of anger or abusive. That is probably not the right time. You've already taken that those 2 points. While you were speaking, I just had a question into my mind that people tend to hide that they are being abused. Okay. They tend to pretend in front of others that their relationship is well, good, blah, blah,
Perfect.
everything perfect and
Yeah.
all. So, how much it is unhealthy for you and the way you're showcasing yourself, and to what extent it is going to harm you to in the longer aspect. So this is very important point and this might help someone. So please show some light. Throw some. Yes.
We just lost your video. Yeah. Okay. So this is for the person who is abused, and how would this kind of a situation impact them? So as we know, in intimate relationships, the relationship is inside the household as well as outside. And if we are projecting a situation where we feel that it's good to show the society or somebody else outside the household, and sometimes even within the household, to another third person, that things are okay between us and things are perfect and all of that. The point here is, in the long run, it will start affecting you because you're living a life of pretense. And you're living a life of pretense, you're basically carrying the entire baggage on your shoulder about keeping the relationship perfect. Because the
Right.
abuser
Mhm.
does not feel responsible for that. If they had, the abuse wouldn't have happened in the first place. The second thing about this pretense is that you are basically giving a free hand to the abuser to continue to do what they do. Because they know that you are going to project a perfect image, so they are safe. You see? So the long term impact on your mental health can be disastrous because you're carrying the weight of the relationship, you're carrying the weight of society's opinions also. That is why you want to make everything look perfect. And
Mhm.
inside of you, you are a different person. You're broken because of the abuse. So there is something you're showing inside of you, and there's something else you're showing up as outside. And in the long run, you're basically deceiving yourself. You're betraying yourself before anybody else betrays you. So mental health issues can crop up.
Right, said.
And in your own personality, you can start to feel very defensive because you're defending the whole relationship in your mind to somebody else all the time. So it may start
Probably
getting reflected in other
also
spaces.
at the
Sorry?
probably the person would start numbing himself or herself because he's accepting that these things are normal. So better, rather than saying that I am getting abused, I am taking it in a very normal way, taking abuse normal way.
So to say that abuse is normal itself is a paradox, right? Because then you're saying that
Yeah.
power imbalance is okay for me and this is my destiny.
Mm-hmm.
So I would, I don't know. Can you please repeat that question? Because I went into that thinking loop of how can we accept abuse as it is and say that it is normal.
No, I was
So
just adding a point on when a person is saying it to others that I'm in a normal relationship and hiding the abuse, that means you're normalizing the abuse. I just added that.
exactly, yeah. So exactly. So the same thing, like it's you're creating that paradox for yourself. You're living a
Mhm.
dual life
Hmm.
because you're normalizing things and we don't know what your motivation to normalize that is. So if it works for you, it works for you. But it's probably a short-term working. You have not assessed or envisioned what in the long term is acceptable or not acceptable to you. And because in the marriage, children come into the play in this kind of a context many times, uh, the conditioning to our children may get affected. Because we've discussed this in one of the previous episodes, Ruchi. Children, even if they don't speak, they observe.
Right.
They can feel the energy, they can feel the vibes. And even if a child cannot speak, one day that child is going to grow up. One day that child may be able to observe all this so much that they might come and speak to you about it. Or they might be also so scared that they will never speak about it. Either which way, if they have observed it, they know something. If they know something and they know that that knowledge does not have a solution, that situation does not have a solution, then they will also internalize it as normal.
Hmm.
So that one step for us to make our marriages look perfect, flawless, fairy tale, a bed of roses, all of that is a betrayal to ourselves because in the next moment we know that abuse is waiting for us. So to each his own, I completely respect the fact that men or women may decide to stay in relationships and normalize abuse for themselves. But a very good question that you asked, Suchi, is it does create a long term impact, not just on you, but on your progeny as well.
Hmm. There is
And not
some.
even, we are not even getting into the impact of what it can be on your career, on your opinions on other things, on the way you will socialize with other people. It's all interconnected. So
Absolutely.
that's where we are. Yeah. There's a
Our
question.
common friend, yes, our common friend Radi Gonzi is saying that I have reached a point now at this stage, I don't care about society anymore. They just make me feel foolish thinking about them all the time. That is a beautiful line that you're saying. Yeah,
Thank you for
Suchi,
sharing.
one does numb oneself, right? Moshimi, thank you for joining. Srinivas Naidu, thank you for joining. Okay, so our next big question is how can I mentally become strong to do or deal with the situation which is abusive?
Okay, so in my opinion, for me, this question, totally with due respect to the person who asked this, mentally becoming strong to abuse for me again is paradoxical. And this is in my personal opinion. I totally respect the fact that each one of us come from different contexts, different backgrounds, different situations, and we take the decisions that we take in the best knowledge and wisdom we have at that point in time. So I respect that. In my opinion, for me, being mentally strong and continuing to be abused is paradoxical. Why do I say that? The very fact that abuse has happened means a power play is at hand. Okay?
Hmm.
There is one person who does not think well about the other person. Very simple. Now, the person who's receiving the abuse may have not identified this as abuse before or may have taken time to absorb the fact that they are, because there's a sense of disbelief around it also when it starts to happen.
Hmm.
Whatever time they may have taken, if they've identified that it is abuse, if they say that they want to be mentally strong while they are in an abusive relationship, what are they really asking for? They're really then saying that let the abuse continue. God give me the strength to bear the abuse. And for me, that is a situation which is completely paradoxical. Why do you want to accept the abuse in the first place? And what are you asking for strength for? So I know it might not go down very well with a lot of people because they say, oh, it's so easy for you to say because you're not abused anymore. I've been there. All right. And I was not mentally strong. It's taken me a lot of hard work to come to wherever I am today, and my healing journey still continues. You are hardly ever mentally strong to be in an abusive relationship. In fact, you are only trying to bridge loops all the time because you have dependencies, you have a child, or you have financial dependencies, or you have a societal opinion, you have the baggage of your what do I do in the future, you have insecurities, you have just so many things that keep you tied to a relationship. That's not being mentally strong. That's just being tied to a relationship because it's nice to be tied to that relationship. Because there's no other thing that you've ever been taught to think. You've been conditioned to think. So
Hmm.
I firmly believe there's nothing like being mentally strong. However, pace, where if you have felt helpless but still have recognized that you can do something about it, that transitionary phase is the place to start getting stronger. It's the place to start getting stronger on skill sets to be able to deal with the abuse. I'm not saying bear the abuse, to be able to deal with the abuse in the way you think is right. And it has a range of options, everything from either leaving the relationship on the one hand to be able to change the abuser on the one hand. And I know just a few minutes ago we said we can't change the abuser, but there are possibilities. What if the abuser is only going through a very temporary phase where they are letting out their frustration on you, which turns out to be abuse, but they may not intend abuse? They can always see a counselor. So there is a range of options. You bring yourself to a point to say that I don't want to feel helpless anymore. What are my options? What are the possibilities? Where is it that I go from here? That's mental strength because you're forward
Beautiful.
looking.
Beautiful. I totally agree to the point. It's just as simple as come out of your victim mindset. Once you are out of your victim mindset, then only you will be able to see the options that Aarti is talking around here. So once you agree, come to that point of acceptance that you want to bring the changes in many forms, but until unless you agree to bring that change into your life and think of how can I come out of this victim mindset, there possibly there is no way anybody can help, neither you, neither I, or any third, fourth person cannot change. You can just think of quick solutions to, divert your mind or numb your mind, but that is not the solution that will help you in the long run. So the
Thank you.
very
Thank you for
beautiful,
adding that, Suchi.
yeah, very
Victimhood,
beautiful point you
feeling
have added.
victimized, and it's quite all right. If somebody who's feeling like a victim right now and says that I do feel victimized, it's okay. Accept it the way it is. This
Mm-hmm.
discussion or any of our previous discussion is not meant to pull you out of something in a minute. It doesn't happen. I know that. But if you're feeling victimized, accept it. Don't run away from that. And
And
then
this,
work from there. Yes.
yes.
Because that's feeling of victimhood is better than denying that you're getting abused. Please create that distinction. So thank you so much for saying that, working from the victim mindset is still work. Because you're
Okay.
starting to talk, you're starting to express yourself, and then you can move from there.
Mm-hmm.
Because there you're moving from being a victim to a survivor.
Okay. So we have a beautiful contradiction. Let's get into that debate and conversation. Ati, I don't agree that abuse can just be temporary. Abuse send frustration can't be equated. Abuse and frustration can't be equated.
Okay.
And
You've been
again,
put
there is
through.
a statement. I used to think that I was a victim before, but now I just know who I am and live it, accept me now or leave me. Okay, that is also beautiful. Accept me or leave me.
My way or the highway, or no, take it or leave it.
Okay.
Okay, so I want to address the previous comment where somebody said frustration cannot be equated to abuse. Now, I'm
Yes.
not sure what you mean by that because we are not equating frustration to abuse. What we're trying to say is that there can be stages of what another person may be feeling which you may not be able to understand, which at the end of the day, whether it is displaced anger, pent up frustration, or abuse per se, because abuse is a culmination of all of this, or either of this, or any other thing. Abuse is the expression of it. All of it is anyways not justified. We are working from that place that all of it is anyways not justified. But there are places where abuse may have an external stimuli, and that frustration may come out on you. All right. So, for example, I am feeling extremely angry about losing a job. That's something that has happened in the workplace environment, and it has come as a shock to me. Now, if it has come as a shock to me, I have nowhere else to express it. Am I going to bang the walls there if I'm very, very angry? I may not do. I may do that. I may not do that. Depends on how I'm feeling at that time. Now, if I'm feeling the most comforted by the fact that when I go home, let's see how I deal with it, or whatever comes to me as a flow, we don't really plan our reactions to shocks, right? But the
Mm-hmm.
moment I reach home and I see somebody who's very dear to me, spousal, otherwise, whichever relationship we look at, and suddenly everything comes up. And how it might come? You might end up criticizing the other person for who they are, whereas actually you are the one who have lost the job and are facing a shock, but you may not be coherent at that time. Again, it doesn't justify your behavior, doesn't justify your reaction. But it is in that moment, because of the external incident that has happened, that you have done something which may not go down well with the person who's receiving it. Not justified. But that doesn't make you a compulsive abuser. There is a distinction there. And the same thing that other person may end up doing with me at a time. Again, not justified. No negative behavior can be justified. That is where near and dear people come and try and understand you. All right, you have raised your voice on me, or you've said funny things to me which you have not said before. Can I sit you down and talk to you about it? What is wrong? Can I help? No neighbor is going to come and do that to you, right? No man on the street is going to come and do that. That's where we find the distinction between abuse and one-off incidents.
Yeah, and as you've already stated that there is a pattern. If this pattern is repeated, that means it is to the level of the abuse which has to be taken care of and dealt in a different manner.
Yes,
And the situation that you're explaining right now as a pent-up frustration or an anger, some sort of resentment that has been accumulated, can be dealt slightly differently than
right,
the pattern of the abuse.
right.
Okay. So, audience, you can put your questions in between while I am taking the questions which have been previously sent. Please feel free to ask any questions which you want to. Um, okay. This is something interesting, and I would like to know your point on that. Everything happens for a reason. What could be the reasons it is happening to me on the context
Oh,
of
that's the
abuse?
question. That's the question. Everything happens for a reason, and why is it happening to me? Very
Why I
interesting.
am.
Yeah, it has a big philosophical angle to it. Very, very interesting question because I've asked that question to myself, and the whole point is this: this actually showcases a victimhood because we are trying to, at some point, when we say that, why is it happening to me? We are trying to compare ourselves to somebody, even if we don't know that person, in an imagination that everybody else's lives are better than mine. At the same time, you say that everything happens for a reason. See, if you are the kind who believe in karma and believe in the cycle of life and all of that and rebirths and all of that, then you might be convincing yourself saying that, okay, I have to endure this and let me see where I go from here. But that's more to just make sense of the situation. The fact that you have to endure it doesn't mean that that is your destiny. You can change it.
Mhm.
So, why is it happening to me is a very common question when one feels victimized and abused. But if you say that it's happening for a reason and why is it happening to me, then do something about it because action is the only thing that will change the second part of the question. Why is it happening to me?
Okay.
And I can assure you it's the most difficult thing to do in an abusive state. It's the most difficult thing to do. But because one has that clarity already, everything happens for a reason, start from there. It's happened, it's happened. What can I do? What power do I have? How can I change this? What is it that I can, think of as a solution? Who can I reach out to? So then the second part of your question will change. Why is it happening to me? Will become what next?
And personally, what I believe I would like to add here is once you try to work on the solutions, once you work on the changing your mindset on from the frame of why it is happening to me to what next, probably you will get the answer to why it happened to you. Because in the broader understanding, you will get that answer. And you need not wait to, like, if you are waiting that if you get the answer then only you're going to focus on bringing the changes into your own life, then that might not happen. You might not get the answer to both the questions into your life personally.
Absolutely. Great, great addition. Yes, Suchi. Yes.
uh,
Apt.
there is an addition from Shimi. She says that just raising your voice or arguing or saying hurtful things in a moment can't tantamount to abuse.
She's saying that it tantamounts to abuse or it doesn't. I'm sorry, I missed that
I'm not
point.
sure. It's just a statement. I don't see any question mark or anything related to it.
See,
So,
okay, so just a quick comment on that then, because we haven't understood whether it's a statement or a question. Just a quick comment. See, there is a word, no, in our vocabulary which is a tantrum.
hmm,
And a lot of tantrums either come out of really a person's nature because they have probably been pampered, or they feel that they are the ones who want to feel pampered in a relationship or something like that, or they come out of finickiness about things. I don't want it this way and I don't want it this way. Now, if you've known traits of somebody already before getting into a relationship and you've agreed to adjust to that or adapt to that in a comfortable way, it's not a deadly compromise for you, then it's fine. So, a tantrum is not an abuse because you have, in a way, you've agreed to those things on the relationship, unless they get worse for you. I mean, everybody evolves. So, something that you've said yes to in your 20s may not be acceptable to you in your 50s. But then that's the whole point. Where is it a tantrum? Where is it okay? Can you go back and laugh at that situation in a relationship? Both of you. Then it's not abuse.
there's one beautiful statement that came in between, and I would like to highlight that statement. People do change. Like, what was your priority 20 years back or 10 years back might not be your priority at present. And you don't know, even with the 20 years of relationship, whether it is acceptable to the other person or not, and how does the party takes it in both ways.
Hmm. Hmm.
So there's something very important that people need to realize and understand, not only in your personal point of view, because you're changing, the other person is not changing, or the other person is changing, you're not changing, but things do happen. Priorities do
Yes.
change, values do change, your beliefs do change. So with these changes, probably the situations that you are into might be different and sound different to you.
Hmm.
Okay, so shall I go to the next question?
Yes. Yes, please. That's
Okay, so I do not compare myself to anyone, but I receive comparison all the time. Why am I the chosen one? Chosen one we have already discussed, so I don't think so. We need to add on that. If
it's on
I
the same
want,
lines of your own self worth. I mean, set boundaries on comparisons and don't feel compared. I mean, there are going to be always more haters than lovers in general of you as a
Mhm.
personality. Just don't let it affect you. It's difficult, but it's not impossible.
Okay,
So
so the
raise your sense
first,
of self-worth and consciousness so much that let the comparisons happen. In fact, if comparisons are happening, it's probably good because there's some worth that you're throwing out into the universe that people want to talk about you. You go on your
beautiful.
own path.
Yes. So you said something very beautiful. So add something to this, Aarti, because if someone is feeling being compared and feeling negative about this into that person's life, That means the person needs to understand and go in a different perspective. And what is your perspective on that note? Please add more.
Yeah, so see, comparisons would happen when somebody else compares you, unless you're doing it yourself. So there's a distinction there. You're saying that, oh, that person is better than me, or that person has done this better than me, or that person has that better than me, then it's comparison on your own. But this person here who's asked the question says, I am being compared. So, okay, even a child of 3 years or 4 years old can sometimes go through comparisons with their own siblings.
Mm-hmm.
And it affects their psyche if the comparisons happen to be very, very, continuous and in front of them and all of that. It affects their psyche because they
Mm-hmm.
don't have the ability to think through that. Their limbic system hasn't developed enough, and they feel that that comparison is a form of criticism. And that affects their self worth when they grow. But that's what we adults are all about, right? That we can shove away comparison so easily, even when it happens. We can decide not to let it affect us. That energy that is coming to us of comparison is simply because there is something about us that is worth comparing. Instead of seeing it the other way around, that I lack something and therefore I'm getting compared to. I would even go out on a limb and say that, okay, if I am being compared to a person X and some person Y said, I don't have this thing as much as person X, I will observe. Okay, that person X is worthy of being compared to me just because of the one extra thing.
Mm-hmm.
Do I want that one extra thing? I'll just change the perspective. So, somebody who's comparing me to another person, thing, situation, event, whatever it may be, I would say, okay, thank you for giving me that power to observe somebody else. Let me see what I can learn. And if I don't have anything to learn from that quality, that skill, or that anything, I'll move on. Compare me to someone else if you have to.
Right.
That's my perspective on it. I mean, it's just something that helps us set our mind on our own boundaries. We're talking about all the time setting boundaries with others. When do we set boundaries with ourselves?
Right.
See,
So,
once we've spoken about self-abuse, self-sabotage, if we let ourselves get compared all the time, we are in a sense of self-sabotage. That means we are loving ourselves less, and that means we are over a period of time abusing ourselves. So if you don't respect yourself, nobody else will, right?
that means you're not accepting your own self, and you're allowing that something which you are insecure about yourself, for the other person to let it get into your head.
Exactly. That's
Okay.
right.
So I let my haters hate me, Maya, but being above. Rajya saying that I work my best, and if it bothers you, deal with your shortcomings. Okay, but Rajya, I'm not able to understand this statement, but it didn't. I did, Aarti, it affects bad. Sorry, in what context you said that? I might have missed it the moment you wrote it. So going with the next question, what should I do when I see other people undergoing or dealing with these situations? So as a third
Abusive
party,
situations. Okay.
as a third party, if we are seeing other person being abused. This question is twice. So I'm clubbing it. If we are seeing someone being abused, so what can we do as a third party?
Thank you for that question, Suchi. It's so important. All this while we've been talking about a person who is getting abused. And now we've come to a point where we're talking about somebody who's concerned about somebody who gets abused and wants to do something about it and doesn't know what to. I think it's a beautiful question. Thank you to that person who asked. And so there are many things we can do to help a person who's abused. But the one thing that we shouldn't do is impose ourselves on them. People sometimes don't want help. A lot of the times they don't want help. They don't want to speak up. But the ones who do, or ones who you care for, or the ones you're seeing being blatantly being abused, you would have to have a very subtle, well-meaning, intentional approach towards them. For example, you may not know the person very well. Say, for example, it's a neighbor, just hypothetically. Okay. So, what are the three or four key things you can do to help them? Now, we difficult to define help because we don't know what situation they are in exactly. We see what we see because either we have heard something of an abuse or we have, just lightly passed and seen an incident happening. But we know clearly there is abuse. So the one thing that one must do is go into the person's home environment. If it's a neighbor, connect with them. Okay, connect. Sometimes it could be as simple as a pretext of really taking a bowl of sugar. Why do I say that? It's because people don't want to be confronted so easily on abuse, even if they are abused. Forget about the abuser. We're not even bringing the abuser in the picture here.
Mhm.
But the person who's abused doesn't want to feel threatened or scared further, especially if a third party knows about this. So if you have the slightest inclination that your neighbor is going through something like that, connect with them. Don't, of course, pick up the topic straight away. Connect with them. Inspire the confidence. They need trust. There's a sense of disbelief and lack of trust around, not just in your abuser, but heavy lack of trust amongst anybody who comes in your space at that time. Inspire the confidence that you are there to support them and you can ask them to speak to you if they feel encouraged. Nothing is going to turn around in just one meeting, and again, depends on the equation that you hit with them. So be consistent. So the first thing, connect. Second thing, inspire the confidence that you are able to at least listen. The third thing connected to the second is be consistent. You are going there, inspiring confidence, and then walking away from that situation is the worst thing you can do to an abuser because they suddenly find a ray of hope and then you withdraw. Doesn't help. So be consistent if you truly intend to help and then figure out what you can do to help. One of the simplest things to do is start documenting. uh, Whatever you observed of the abuser of your, don't record anything in front of them and don't use any tools, but record whatever you know in terms of writing some notes when you come back so that you can start putting pieces together. And the last thing, more beyond you, what you can really do to start to help somebody is connect them to professionals. It could be a local support group. It could be an NGO. It could be the authorities if you feel that the abuse has reached a level where authorities need to be involved. So there can be many different options in the outside world. But to begin with, your approach has to be subtle, very, very loving, caring, and intentional as an observer. I hope that helps.
Yeah, and I think so. The points that you said is completely doable. So it can be taken, like one step can help and bring the change in other person's life, and this small step, we never know, would be a boon to that person's life.
You never know. Yes. There are a lot of abused people who live in isolation with their problems. And, there's one aspect we discussed that they live marriages as if they are perfect. And then there's another group of people who remain completely isolated. They don't even have any access to the outside world. And they continue to bear
Mhm.
the abuse. So it's important that we don't ignore these things as a society.
Wonderful. Thank you for taking these questions, Aarti. And to this, we are coming to the end of our emotional abuse series that we had in this month of January and February. Sorry, January, it's yet January. My mistake.
This end of December is when we started. So we wrapped up last year on a high note with the first episode. Yes, and we wrap up
Yes,
today
yes,
on the
yes.
theme.
And Aarti, I have always added your Instagram handles where people can connect with you to deal with the situation. And I highly recommend, please don't keep hold on the situations into your life or to someone else's life. Please do connect. It is my humble request. Please do connect if you know someone. Just send them artist's link, Instagram link. Just there's an option to send someone's link. Just send someone's link. That person can at least go through the content and feel that he or she is not alone, and he and she had sort of, possibilities that can bring changes into their life. And I would, if you can connect and tell that person to connect with Aarti, then that is something very good that you would do. But if you are not, but please do share Aarti's Instagram handles and other means where Aarti is available, so that you can help the person in even a slightest or minutest of the person that you can do. Take that step, take that action. Anything, Aarti, because I have come to the end of my questions and you want to add before we end the series.
Suchi, really, truly, truly, truly grateful for the fact that you bring this beautiful energy to our lives, and you're bringing such intentional energy that I know that things are going to change for somebody around. At least one person who starts to feel that yes, this energy works, and I feel it when you say things like this. And thank you so much. Thank you very very much for joining into the cause, doing something about it. And just leave one last thing to say about abuse is not the end of your life. It's probably the beginning of a really beautiful chapter that you are yet to discover for yourself. Think about that. So, on that note, gratitude. Thank you.
Bye bye.